Welcome into the Radioactive Paper Cuts podcast. I'm your host, Josh Kennedy. Today we're going to be doing a radioactive review on The Witcher Season 2, Episodes 3 and 4. Joining me today is my good friend from Atlanta, and the Falcons do not have a home game, so you can see her lovely face. Rachel, how are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm awesome.
Now, you were super pumped to talk about these episodes, so I'm glad to have you on. We're missing Coach today. He's playing dad. He sent me some notes, so we'll at least get some of his opinion. I'll
Yeah.
probably cut out some of the unnecessary swear words, and we'll move on from there. So,
Perfect.
first things first, episode 3. What is Lost? That's the name of this episode. What are your thoughts on this one, just overall?
I think episode 3 really brought us into the swing of things. I think that's where things started really pick up compared to 1 and 2. 1 and 2 set us up, just kind of bringing us back into, the scope of things, the timeline, and season 3 just picked it all up for us. A little bit more action. So
Yeah, that's an interesting thing, like an interesting point, because episode 1, at least for Geralt and Ciri, it was more of like one of those side adventure type things,
yeah,
and
like
then
developmental.
they kind of needed Yennefer to go through the beginnings of her storyline. So
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like felt like filler content before we
Yeah,
got to the
catch
real
up,
story of it.
catching us up. Yeah, which was nice,
Exactly.
I guess, after 2 years of not seeing our, good friends, the crew, the squad, not seeing them. It was good, to kind of be like ease back in. So, yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. And yeah, like you said, we kind of get into the nitty gritty a little bit more in episode 4, but we'll get to that. Episode
Mhm.
3, we get to see the epic training montage with Ciri showing she's as badass as any other dude in the room.
Mhm.
And I really appreciated seeing that. But the beginning of this episode, I think we kind of had the emotional send off for our not so friend Eskel, fellow Witcher. And we got to see a little bit of an emotional side of Vesemir, which from the sounds of it, that's not necessarily within what his character normally does. What's your opinion on that?
I love Vesemir's character. I think Vesemir is a complex character. Um, my experience with him is really just from the games,
Mm-hmm.
which is why wish Cody was here because he could tell us a bit more from the books. But
Oh, he doesn't
um,
read; he just watches YouTube videos.
oh really?
So
Oh
let him
okay.
fool you.
Well, but yeah, I think the act like I like that this is what Netflix is doing with
Yeah,
the world of The Witcher. It's expanding it in ways that maybe the books or the video games were I'm not going to say limited by, but it just adds a different angle to it. And I think that um, adding a little bit more emotional depth to Vesemir helps to convey more of the parenting
right.
side of Vesemir. And I think it also shows that age, changes people, time changes people, and the impact that, knowing that it's that legacy that's, there's no more Witchers. I think, no, like him carrying that his entire life and growing old and not being able to find something, because I'm pretty sure that this is part of something that's always in the back of Vesemir's mind is like, if there's a possibility to create new Witchers, I'm gonna try to find it. I'm gonna, you know, try to do this. And maybe that's also kind of what made him a little bit more emotional in his older age.
Yeah, I mean, plus like he is kind of raised them in a way. I mean, it raised them to be more of I guess, men within the Witcher scenario, and that he does kind of does he did play like a parent role there, and then we get to see Geralt's reaction, which he also this whole Witcher's not having emotions obviously bullshit. I don't know why it was ever even stated. He could you could tell I loved the flashbacks where he got to see Eskel. I mean, it was almost like a zombie Eskel at first or whatever. At least that's how it seemed for a second, and then all of
Mhm.
a sudden it's a flashback to some training they used to do. So it kind of displays the brotherly love that they have.
Yeah, maybe just because they've experienced the same trials is why they feel more comfortable expressing like a greater range of emotions around each other, particularly. Like they feel safe, it's like it's their home and they're around their brothers and, who doesn't feel comfortable at home and around their siblings to be a little bit, like their weirder, more authentic self, right? So maybe that's the same case for them.
Yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, there's obviously certain scenarios where they try and act tough with each other, but at the same time,
Mhm.
they're very understanding of like the trials and tribulations that you go through as a Witcher, and because they've lived very parallel lives, you can really feel the absence of them losing Eskel, even though. I
Yeah.
mean, obviously, he was in one episode, and I didn't like him very much. He was a jerk, but
Yes.
because there's hundreds of years or however long he's been a Witcher, it kind of it drains on the remaining Witchers for sure. At one point,
Mhm.
Lambert kind of almost just tells Geralt straight up that you killed him, and it hits hard for sure.
Yeah, yeah, I think that everybody's feeling, like everybody grieves in different ways. And obviously Lambert's not the best with words. Like out of all the Witchers, I feel like he's probably been the one who's emphasized their lack of decorum, right? They
Yeah.
use that word a lot
Uh-huh.
in the Witcher series. But yeah, he lacks decorum quite a large extent. Um, but I think that in his way, like like witchers don't kill other witchers. Like they protect their own, and they were the children that survived the slaughter and the fall of Kaer Morhen. So I think that Lambert is that poignancy in his statement did hit home for sure.
Yeah, and we get to just kind of explore this Witcher world even more, which is fun.
Mhm.
And Ciri, she's getting bored of hitting this hay dummy or whatever, which makes perfect sense with a girl of her age. Just okay, so how many times do I have to pretend to kill this thing before I can actually do something cool?
Yeah.
So we kind of it was Lambert and I don't know the other Witcher's name that were kind of teasing her for hitting a dummy. I don't know if you
Starts
remember.
with a C. I think it's Kine,
Kane, sure.
something like
Yeah,
that. Yes,
doesn't
something. Sorry.
specifically matter, but yeah, he was
Yeah, I know who you're referencing. Yes.
they were
Yeah.
making fun of her, so they showed her the training course, which was for the whole time the training course is going. All I was reminded of was just like violent wipeout. That's what I was
Exactly.
thinking
Exactly.
the
Yep.
whole time.
And I'm
So,
like,
go ahead.
oh no, you're fine. I was just thinking, as soon as like I was like, Siri's looking at this and she's not necessarily uh prepared physically, I think. Because you think about what did she experience back in Sintra? Like what kind of rigorous physical training did she go through? Like we know that Calanthe was a warrior leader, but her daughter not so much. So you know, I
That's a
really do
good point.
question because we don't get a good look in series past, like what was she specifically educated on? Like how much does she know about the world of, the continent? How much does she know about her family? And how much does she know about physical training? So
Yeah.
I don't know if she goes up to this training set and it's like, oh, easy peasy, or if she's just completely innocent or naive in that sense,
Mhm.
about like, oh, I can take this on. It's like, hang on.
Yeah, I got a feeling that maybe the death of her mother may have just had the grandma maybe start to show her a little
Mhm.
bit of the ropes. I mean, she didn't look like a novice, but she also clearly had not taken on a challenge as big as that training
Yeah,
course. But she was also willing to take it head on and prove the dumb boys wrong, which I appreciated.
yeah.
So she takes the falls a bunch of times, gets cut up, loses a bunch of blood, which
Mhm.
blood's more important in episode 4. So we'll get to that eventually. But
Yes.
how did you feel about watching Siri kind of go through this whole event with the determination she did?
I mean, I really appreciated that you know, they didn't mince it or they didn't shorten her training series. Like they really showed her getting like whacked around. Like I was like, girl's gonna
Oh
get
yeah,
a concussion, like they really showed that the training was intense and it required like quick reflexes and you had to think it through. And you had to, think about your approach and like all the things that go into being a Witcher. It was also a really good throw to the video game, which I really appreciated. You get to kind of be parallel with Siri in her mind, so to speak. So it was cool to see Netflix balancing out the video game element and how they wrote in Siri's character within the show. So the Siri video game character and the Siri show character. So
that was a note Coach had sent me where he said the training ground looks cool, but it seems impractical. but it also looks just like it did in the game. So
Yes.
that's his 2 cents on that,
Yes.
which makes a lot of sense now. While all this is happening, we might as well talk about Yennefer's story going on right now.
Mhm.
So she's politicking at Aretuza, right? Is that what that's where they are, like the wizard council or whatever is going on there?
Mhm.
And were you okay with her reappearance at Aretuza? Because it was they didn't really explain it.
I have to say that I shouted when like, when she appeared, like, for shock value, I thought that delivered some major shock value, like, I may have shed a tear, like, one small tear, but at the same time, I was kinda like, it felt a little jarring because it's like, she lost her magic, so how did she get there?
Yeah, she went on an acid trip in a tomb, and then all of a sudden, the next time we see her, she's back
Exactly,
in Aretuza.
exactly.
I was
Um,
confused about. I didn't mind it, obviously, but
yeah,
still, it's
and
weird.
I mean, I hate Stragobor. I'll be upfront and honest about that. Like, of all the characters, I hate him more than I dislike Fringilla.
That's the one
Um,
played by Mickelson, I think is
yeah,
the actor's last name. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's in a
mhm,
handful of shows. I think he's
yeah,
Mad's brother.
yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I mean, he's an excellent actor, but I mean, but I have to say, like, I agree with him. Like, his questioning of like, oh, you showed up out of nowhere after a month. I mean, that's a good question to ask. Someone who's been missing after war.
It was
Um,
justified for sure.
yeah,
I mean, not
exactly.
his actual actions, but the
The
whole
questioning.
being skeptical about it made a lot of
Mhm.
sense for the character.
Yep.
So yeah, that whole thing goes down, and to say just kind of I mean, we can obviously talk about what she went through even before Yennefer showed up, where she had to make her scroll of all the dead mages,
Mhm.
and really was a bummer of a scene that she had to add Yennefer to the list, and then obviously that was all taken back later. But Tasai's getting a lot of opportunities to just show the emotional characteristics of her character, I suppose.
Yeah, I think that I mean, again, with the emotions, like we talked about with the Witchers, I mean, Yennefer and Tissaia, they're like I think a lot of our characters are showing a lot more, or they're showing a greater range of themselves. Maybe it feels emotional to us, but I think we're just getting more time to see, more angles on them. But I think it is interesting that we're getting to see Tissaia being less stoic,
Hmm.
as a teacher in her teacher role, and seeing how time has changed that, and especially seeing her connection with Yennefer. Um, yeah, I know that the political dynamics that are happening at Aretusa in this episode also probably add to that, but I think it's great. I think it's a really good thing that we're seeing this development for her because I think it'll play in, as the show moves along with Tissaya's character, seeing how she's gonna, because she told Yennefer, do we let chaos control us or do we control chaos? Do we work with our emotions or do we let our emotions work against us and make us vulnerable? So I'm wondering to what extent she's gonna let herself continue to be vulnerable and let her emotions kind
Yeah,
of play. So it'll be cool.
no
It's tricky
doubt.
slope, right?
Yeah. So the big reveal obviously is Yennefer has lost her powers. We get introduced with that with the hot tub bath scene, whatever that was, with the other mages, and we were also we learned a little bit more about Triss and her kind of character arc in that scene as well. How she was
Yeah.
scarred during the Battle of Sodden Hill, but I don't was she did she choose not to get repaired? Is that am I understanding that correctly, or is it just one that couldn't be repaired?
I think that it was more along the lines of what couldn't be repaired,
Okay.
which I'm not I'm not completely sure with why. Like it because it seemed like she was just damaged by, typical man-made fire, like nothing to do with chaos.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm not entirely sure why she couldn't be fully healed by the other very powerful mages that were surrounding her, right?
Right.
Um, but maybe maybe because it was Nilfgaard, maybe they were, maybe they're fire. I mean,
Yeah.
fire magic, right? Fire magic is something that's obviously a trope that's showing itself. So maybe that's the one of the first strongest things because Triss was attacked by fire. So maybe it has something to do with that, like fire magic. I'm not sure. But yeah, Triss is a central character, definitely in the video games, and I love that her hair has turned red, because it makes her so much more accurate to the video games. But yeah, she's a lovely character, and you get to like start seeing a much more,
Yeah,
from the
that's
beginning, you
the
get to see
next
a lot more.
episode. I'm excited to talk about her for sure in the next one because her character gets developed and obviously plays a pretty central role in the
Mhm.
next episode. But while we're still on this one, I am never ever going to remember the archaeologist mage's name. Do you have
Oh,
that?
Eastrid, yeah. Yeah,
Easter. I knew.
Yennefer's
Oh my
first
god!
lover, right.
His name for some reason always escapes me. I never understand why, but
Oh,
it
he
doesn't
doesn't
actually matter.
have
So
to.
he kind of he makes an appearance here,
Mhm.
and the explanation for him being there made a little bit of sense. I think it was like an expert on what did they discover
The
exactly?
monoliths.
The monoliths. Okay, so
Yeah.
he's an expert on monoliths. He's got the
Mhm.
history there, and he shows up, kind of tells some stuff about the monoliths, but Stregoborn's telling the group of people about this story with the giant fire demon, and he kind of
Mhm.
Esther calls him out on that. So I quite enjoyed that. So what was your opinion on that whole thing? Is there something behind that story he was telling? Because I don't personally know anything about it.
I mean, yeah, definitely. I really enjoyed him calling Strigobor out because obviously I feel Strigobor needs to be put in his place a little bit more often. But
Right.
yeah, I mean, this story is pretty pivotal. And with season one, we know that these kind of stories are foreshadowing moments. So this story, I think, highlights just like season one, a lot of the our female uh, characters, how it really depends on the perspective that you're viewing the situation from. You may call, the same goddess, you'll call a demon the next day. Like it depends on how you're viewing the situation, right? And I think
Right.
that that's kind of what Eastrid is bringing to the table is, um, you know, you're saying that this story happened one way, and yet she like she was fighting for a legitimate cause. Like her family took her throne away from her and she was fighting to get it back. If she was a man, would you be questioning it? Probably not. And then I thought what was interesting is Stragobor shows that his hands are cut off.
Right.
Going back to episode 1 with Nevelyn, why did he experience, the question was, and Geralt asked, he was like, why did you experience such an extreme curse for something so simple as desecrating a temple? And then obviously at the end of episode 1, we find out that not only did he
Right.
desecrate the temple, he raped the priestess. So that makes me wonder. I'm like, Stragobor, bruh, what'd you do? What'd you do to this, fire goddess that you're like, demonizing and making out to seem like this horrible person that everyone should kill or not trust or whatever? Like, and then you got your hands cut off. So what'd you do? Why did you only get your hands cut off? Why didn't she
Yeah.
just kill you?
I'm
Makes me
curious
question.
as well. That's a
Yes.
fair point. Yeah. Strugglebord, he's one of those characters where he's very much an antagonist, and he's just going to continue to be so. And
Yeah.
it's always interesting when you have a character that's technically part of the same alliance as some of the main.
Yes.
Uh, I mean, I've used this reference before, but it's essentially like a Judas within the disciples type of thing, where he's
Mhm.
very much it's pretty obvious he's going to be the one that causes issues for our main trio at some point or another.
Yes. Definitely.
But what he did in this specific episode is he got into the mind of Yennefer, which is a big no-no within the magic community. So,
Mhm.
what was your opinion on all of that stuff going down?
I mean, I think that he's obviously he's a character that is drawn to power as well, and he's part of this old world order, within Aretuza. And I think that another one of these things that's occurring in this season is the concept of desperation. He was desperate. He
Yeah,
really, and so is Artorias, the black mage that also rules alongside, or not rules, but leads alongside of him. And they're desperate to hold their seat because they know that Vilgefortz and Tisea are coming for them. So, you know, I know as much as Tisea and everybody else probably didn't want that to happen to Yennefer. I'm thinking that, Tisea and Vilgefortz were probably glad that,
Glad that they did.
the timing of things, and that he decided to like make that mistake and go ahead and, you know, get infiltrate her mind and do something against another one of their fellow mages, which that's
Right.
absolutely, you're right. It's a absolute no-go.
And directly before that, I forgot to reference it, but Istrid, he and Yennefer kind of have a bit of an argument, but ultimately
Mhm.
Istrid kind of exposes his true alliance with Yennefer. How he kind of like, I don't think you should run, and she's under the impression that she really needs to run to get away from all this. And he's like, okay, well, watch out for these guys in the tower. And he's showing his hand to her, which is an interesting thing. And I don't know if that's going to be the best thing for him, because this seems like it's going the same route as like a Game of Thrones with all the politics that goes down, and he really felt like a
Mhm.
Ned Stark right there, where he's trying to be the good guy, but I'm like,
Yeah.
you might be doing too much
Mhm.
there.
Yeah, no, I agree. I questioned that moment too. And I mean, obviously, Yennefer did too. She's like, "Why are you telling me all this?"
Right.
It's definitely he is showing his hand, but I don't know if it's about trust. I question it. Maybe he's trying to be strategic as well. Somehow, trying to help keep Yennefer alive, maybe for I don't know, magical purposes later, hoping that
I
maybe
think he's
she'll
still into
regain.
her. I think that's the main thing, is he's totally still into Yennefer, and
Yeah,
she's not
yeah, you
feeling him
think that's it?
anymore.
It's just the attraction and the love that's still there.
It might be. I mean, I don't know for sure, but he doesn't
Yeah,
like, he's a fun character, but as far as being like mentally strategic, he hasn't displayed that so far in the
true.
show, at
That's a
least
good
from what
point.
I've
You're right.
noticed. So he
I
very
just
well
think it's an
could get to that.
interesting, um, like, shift because, we left him and Yennefer when she visits him in wherever they were in Nilfgaard.
Right.
At he rejects her, and then the next time we see him in one single episode, he's switched his tune entirely. So, did he gain some confidence with Nilfgaard, advancing and the elves, just certain things happening? Like, it's just very interesting.
You gotta feign some relationship drama to keep people interested in a show. I really think that's really
Yeah.
most of the storytelling there. But so his characters, he showed his cards obviously, and then
Mhm.
Strigobor did what he did, and then he gets caught by Tisea, and she breaks it up, and then she brings him in front of the consul, and he goes very politician. I won't say which politician I'm thinking of, but that's exactly the person that I thought he was acting like. So
Yeah.
he kind of tries to talk his way out of it, is essentially what happened. And did it work? It felt like it kind of worked,
No,
but
it was very
did
much a
the
straw
damage?
man fallacy. Like it was just so weak. He was trying just to do, attack on like everybody's credibility, Vilgefortz, Tisea, Yennefer, and obviously, he committed an act on one of the fellow,
Right.
mages there, and I think that he just sunk himself.
Yeah.
His
I
desperation.
was gonna say, but like, does he have immediate repercussions? I don't recall. Did he get like put in some sort of prison, or is he on you got a slap on the wrist? What exactly
They weren't
happened to him?
clear about it, but
Right.
basically that just marked the shift. Like that marked the shift, giving Vilgefortz and Tisea enough reason to basically be like, okay, you are not fit to, lead.
Mhm.
Your voice has less sway, and your vote, has less weight. So
Mhm.
step side, step
So
side.
this essentially. I mean, one. I mean, it sucks for Yennefer, but it also kind of proves her innocence in that way. So she kind of
Mhm.
gains the trust back from the other mages, and she still is given the test that she has to prove herself, though. And the
Right.
way she's supposed to prove herself is decapitate what's his face. I have his name on here somewhere. Kahir.
Kyrie, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
So
And I
that
was messing up his name all last time.
yeah, I mean
So
the
sorry
Black
about
Knight, whatever you want to call
Black
him.
Knight,
But
yes.
I mean, the strangest thing about him, I had no idea he was going to be a big character. I thought he was like a throwaway henchman in season one who got a little bit of focus here and there, but obviously
Mhm.
by the end of this episode, it kind of leads like, okay, so maybe he's going to get more story, and we're going to get to the next episode in a moment here.
Yes.
So Yennefer chooses to, instead of decapitating him, chooses to slice the chains on his wrist and make a run for it. Now, what exactly did you think of this decision? Because for a second, I was like, why don't you just take his head off? He doesn't mean
Yeah, I
anything to
know.
you.
I part of me was really, really, really hoping that she would. Um, I don't know. I'm kind of like, it's funny because I'm like, that all these people in this world, especially Yennefer, they've killed people. They are already murderers. So to be facing this question whether like to be a murderer or not to be a murderer, that's not even the question. I don't know. It's not I don't know. It's a difficult situation. I don't really know what Yennefer might have been questioning in her head. I think the writers were trying to posit it as like, oh, she doesn't want to be seen as a murderer versus, like
You
she'll
saw
just
her go like Super Saiyan though and take out an
yeah,
entire
exactly.
field of people, so that
Exactly.
argument doesn't stand.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying, like, it's complex. I'm not quite sure what her actual dilemma is, but, maybe it's that other trope of the, sense of desperation. Like, she was desperate to get out of that situation. She didn't wanna take yet another life, right? If she didn't have to, even though, like, I don't know. It's just,
Yeah, it's a little flimsy. That's all
maybe
I'm
out of
saying is
desperation, she just, cut the chains and go kind of thing.
the
Yeah.
explanation. I mean, it obviously progressed the story to where they wanted it to go, so it was very much it worked for that case. But I
Mhm.
questioned her actual reasoning behind it, and maybe it's just flimsy, or maybe we'll get more of a reveal later, like she knew something that we don't. But
Yeah.
that essentially concludes their story for this episode. They ride off on the white horse and they're
Mhm.
gone. Now let's get back to Ciri and Geralt. So she finished. Obviously, she did finish the obstacle course and then fell off before she went down the stairs. So Geralt
Yeah.
says almost. I'm like, you're a jerk, but whatever. And they, I believe it's this episode. I don't want to get too confused, but they kind of embrace her powers or the pulling feeling that she's feeling now. Was that the same episode
Um,
or was that the next episode with the
that's
monster?
the next episode. They
Okay.
start to kind of like I think with series training, I think they're setting it up in season 3. Like her training is helping her kind of develop her voice.
Okay.
Which maybe it's a little counterintuitive, but like maybe it's just making her a little bit more brave to find the right words, the right vocabulary to express what she's feeling, and to continue to build that trust with Geralt and Kaer and the rest of the Witchers and Vesemir to start to open up about what's really going on, because that's the question that Vesemir has, and Geralt. Geralt says to Vesemir like, oh, I don't know what's going on. She hasn't told me what she's done. I don't know what's going on with her, and yeah, I think that the training just helps set her up for the next episode.
Well, we did you have anything else to say about episode 3 or you all right with jumping into
I mean,
episode 4 here?
I really loved seeing more of Geralt and Ciri's relationship and seeing
Yes,
Geralt
and he
as a
showed
whole.
support, which was definitely an important uh
Exactly.
plot.
Exactly.
So
Yep.
that's
Having that just reemphasized even more and just seeing a little bit more of that was absolutely great. I enjoyed it.
Me too. I was like, man, that was probably the best episode so far, but I immediately watched episode 4 and changed my mind. So
Yes.
might as well jump into episode 4
Just
here.
keeps getting better and better.
Yes. So obviously we'll get to talking about our best friend Yaskir because that was super exciting, but we might
Yeah.
as well stay within the wall we're in, or the little pod we're in right now, and stick with Geralt and Ciri. So
Mhm.
first off, Geralt invites Triss to join them at Kaer, which
Mhm.
big deal because he sees this as an opportunity to really flesh out her powers as opposed to trying to keep them contained. Which that's if this is a different type of show, that's exactly what the parental figure would do: is try and
Yeah.
get them to avoid this dangerous life. But Geralt he's a supportive father adjacent figure, so he doesn't have to he's
Mhm.
not as he doesn't treat her like a baby. I think that's an important note here. If it was actually his daughter, he may probably feel differently about it, just because then it's like,
Right.
okay, I raised this thing from here to here and I don't want her to get hurt. But instead, he recognizes her potential. So when we get Triss, which awesome, very cool that they kind of go in here. And from my understanding, her and Geralt have a pretty interesting love triangle type of thing with Yennefer within the video games, which is
Def
all
they do.
well and good. But that's not
Yes.
it. It kind of seemed like they curved that immediately, which I appreciate.
Um, yeah, I mean, I really like that they did not, and maybe this is a controversial thing to say. Even though I love the video games, I actually really, really appreciate that they did not make Geralt and Triss's relationship sexual or romantic at all in season one. Um, like again, I'm really glad to see more male and female friendships. Not having any sort of like romantic sexual stuff in general, but particularly in season one, I think it helped to emphasize Geralt and Yennefer's relationship by not making Triss, like a combative kind of other mage in the picture. Because obviously Geralt with like the horrors of the Witcher world, or Yennefer with her flings and whatever.
Right, right.
Those things don't matter. But Triss being a major character, if Geralt and her had a thing, that would actually matter. But yes, yeah, that's
I
true.
appreciated that they hinted that there was definitely some sort of past relationship with them. So you get that a little bit of a layer there where they have some sort of history. It doesn't go into specifics, obviously, but
So they right.
yeah, it's acknowledged, which I think is important. I mean, not to me because I don't particularly care if they follow these video games all that much, but to people that have been playing it for the last 5, 10 years or however long ago the first one came out, I'm sure they appreciated that Triss was had that past with him. But
Yeah, that they're hinting at it. That I think it's more like Triss is showing her attraction towards Geralt in this
yeah,
episode, and just it's a good nod towards the video game. I think in a very polite way.
yeah, no doubt. So so this is the point where they kind of acknowledge that Ciri's got this
Yeah.
power, or like future. She can tell the future, or whatever he calls it. He has an actual name for it. Foresight, I think, is what he calls it.
Yeah, I think he uses the word foresight. Yeah.
But either way, it essentially means she can kind of predict her own future. So he asked where this comes from and what exactly this memory is, and she says it
Hmm.
feels like a pull, and the pull, obviously, she says, oh, it's coming from the woods. So they make their way out to the woods. And what do we see but the Lishi that had turned to Skell, because this Lishi was missing a
Yeah.
hand. So super important. Also, really dope looking, like really
Right.
really cool. I
Right.
enjoyed the visuals of it because I mean we got a little bit of a version of it with the Skell, but having the thing be in its natural habitat with the crazy root system and
Yeah.
stuff like that, that was really cool to watch.
Yeah. It was cool. Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, this show is so cool with monsters. that's
Yeah,
that's
it,
just
it
the thing.
honestly it looked kind of like how like a twig doll or a voodoo doll would look. It kind
Right.
of reminded me of that, but just giant size, which was really creepy. I'm not really familiar with what Lishis are, like their mythology, so this makes me want to go look it up,
I know.
honestly.
Well, immediately following this, so Geralt starts to like
Yes,
fight the Lishi to keep it away from Ciri, and another bigger monster shows up. And
yes,
this one I
yes.
have had confirmed by Coach is a brand new monster. And I looked up the name. It is a Myriapod.
Mirapod.
Myriapod.
Okay, yes, I was just about to say, I was like,
Yes.
I don't know the name of this one.
Myriapod, yes.
Mirapod.
And
Okay.
it is described as a wolf ram centipede hybrid looking thing. And I was like, okay, I'll roll with that. But that thing was
Okay.
freaking sweet. Also
Yeah.
crazy dangerous. So it just walks up to the leash. She splits the thing in half. I
Yes.
mean, you can definitely tell this show has a budget now. That's a fact. All the CGI is just,
Oh yeah.
it's some top tier stuff. So they obviously, Geralt tells Ciri to run, and he tries to. I think he tries to use like the flame sword to beat this thing too, and it doesn't go his way, and he gets tuned up
Mhm.
and thrown into a boulder. Now, what did you think of this whole kind of fight scene and exchange with these monsters?
I mean, I love anytime they show the monsters. Like I think the interesting thing is that we well, obviously we learn that the Myriapod, I hope
Yeah,
I'm saying it
yeah,
correctly,
sure.
is a new monster, but we know that from the previous episode that Lishis are ancient monsters. They're like one of the first monsters from the continent, and they're around for a very long time. So it's like,
Hmm.
oh, so it's like the whole concept of like the continent is transitioning and a new monster kills an old monster in order to get to Siri, get to Geralt. And I think that's a cool extra emphasis on things really shifting. So yeah, all the
Yeah, and it
action.
also it explains a little bit of the inconsistencies with how Alicia acts and how it was actually represented. So it
Yeah.
was a little bit different than what the Witchers were used to seeing. So I am wondering how exactly they differ, and based on what we find out, it's these monsters are likely from the monolith. I don't believe that's actually confirmed technically, but that's the running theory.
Yes.
Now, what's the importance with the monoliths? Is this something from the video games, or is this some deep cut stuff that I mean I'm just trying to understand what they represent.
Um, I mean, I think it's a little bit more like deep cut. I mean, I wish I read the books, or had a little bit more background knowledge on it, because maybe it says it a bit more there. But from kind of my understanding, like monoliths are considered like kind of like pillars of
Okay.
chaos. Kind of like
Oh.
radio antenna signals.
Okay.
Technically,
That
I
makes sense.
think that's kind of how they've been viewed on the continent. That is probably subject to change because if monsters are coming from a source, what does that sound like? That doesn't sound like a radio signal. That's not a broadcast signal. What is that? A door.
Yeah, a
Sounds like a
door.
door.
That's a good
What are
point.
and what are doors in the world of the Witcher? They're portals. So
Okay. Okay, that's fun. I like that.
yeah, so that's where I'm thinking this is heading. It's kind of like the whole continent's having to shift its view about what they thought these ancient things were. And yeah, I think that maybe that's where this might be heading. Like, where would monsters come from? They, not just poof. Maybe, if it is like chaos magic conduit kind of source, then maybe it means it's a door, but we don't see
Yeah,
that
a
yet.
door. And the other thought I kind of had is later in this episode, obviously, the very end, it's revealed that Ciri has elder blood, which is something that they thought had expired
Yeah.
forever ago. And we're going to get into the importance of that. But I think in
Hmm.
my head, I was like, maybe this elder blood thing, and combined with her powers and this monolith, like, is bringing back more ancient monsters that the Witchers might not necessarily know about. Like maybe this myriapod thing is nothing
Good
the
point.
Witchers have ever seen. Like, yeah, it'd be
Right.
like, okay, how should I kill a T Rex? That's how I'm seeing things here. It's
Right,
like
right.
I have no
That's,
idea how to kill a T
yeah,
Rex. I've never seen one.
that's a good point. Yeah.
But Geralt figures it out, so good for Geralt. He
Yeah, I
saves
know. That
Ciri.
was like so strategic. I have to say, I really loved how they slayed the Myriapod. Like,
It was so
especially showing Ciri's trust in herself, trust with Geralt, and then Geralt's epic, just like jump through the air and
yeah. He's just
flash.
his superhero scene. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly
yeah,
like
I'm glad
that.
they did it.
Yeah, splits it, cuts the head off. So cool. I was a fan, and this gets analyzed by Triss back at Karamorin, and this weird potion thing. I don't know, some mumbo jumbo science, magic, logic that they use in the show. It's to kind of show that she can prove if this is influenced by magic, because Geralt makes the joke like, "Oh, it's forbidden by mages. There's no way a mage did it," and it's like, okay, so clearly mages are known for breaking the rules. So maybe they did create these monsters, and that was the
Right.
running theory at first.
Hmm.
And then they find out that they're both made of the same substance, something ite. I don't know the name
Yeah,
exactly.
Stellosite or something, the
Stellacite.
monolith material.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's how they figured that whole thing out. But
Mhm.
I enjoyed the interactions that Triss and Siri kind of had there, because Siri did. I don't know if she just looks up to Triss because she's another woman within the Witcher walls, the Karamoran walls, But she
Yeah.
dresses herself up super nice the next time. I don't know if she's trying to impress her. Maybe she's got like a childhood crush on her. I don't know. I don't exactly know what's going on there, but uh, I enjoyed that. I thought it was fun. I mean, it's
Yeah.
Syria being a girl, which she hasn't exactly been given the opportunity to do in this schlubby abandoned castle thing.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, I really like that they wrote that in. It really makes me question, and it's great that, Geralt, Vesemir, Triss, everybody's asking what Ciri's background is. The audience is too. My entire question is like, what did she experience? How many female figures did she really have in her life? Because you know that Calanthe was a control freak. Like, let's
Right.
not mince words here. Calanthe was a control freak. I mean, she
Yeah, she
slaughtered
tried to give
elves.
away a different kid.
Right.
Rude.
She slaughtered elves because she was a control freak. She wanted, to kill her, daughter's, true love.
Hedgehog boyfriend.
Right, hedgehog boyfriend, because she was a control freak. She wanted to give away another child instead of Ciri because she's a control freak. Anyway, I wonder if Calanthe also really limited Ciri's uh, interactions with other women.
I could see that.
I can see it too, because we only really see Ciri being surrounded by, men who they are strong men in their own right, but it's kind of like they follow Calanthe and they don't really like they're more of the subordinate, not like
And
Geralt.
Calanthe herself, I mean, she's not specifically girly either. I mean, Ciri even says later on that, hey, my grandma was a badass. She wore dresses and she killed a bunch of people, so I can do what I
Exactly.
want here. So that was
Yeah,
appreciated at the very least.
which I like the reason I guess I'm like digging a little deeper into this while we're talking is it emphasizes the femininity concept within the world of The Witcher, which
Mhm.
um, femininity is seen as a threat in the world of The Witcher, which obviously we can make parallels to our own world. Um, but expressing your femininity, um, it either means that you are looking to be sexually active or manipulative or both, or like the mages, like the sorceresses, using their sexual
I
prowess
mean,
to.
we're gonna get to Yennefer and how the deaf elf boy had a crush on her. We'll get to that stuff here in a bit.
Yeah,
But yeah, that's
yeah. So
exactly. I
it
didn't
goes
even
into
notice
that
that
area.
within the world of The Witcher, I genuinely, I guess I didn't really notice that is kind of hit a few times throughout this series. Is that the
Yeah,
women displaying femininity, like you said, is seen
yeah,
as something like a means to an end, which is interesting. I
yeah.
don't know
But I
how
mean,
that
you
would.
see, like Ciri expresses a little bit more femininity, and Lambert, obviously, it has to be him.
Of course,
Makes fun of her, right? And
yeah, you got flour
uh,
in your hair.
right, and you got, you clean yourself up and whatever, and you put on a dress. It's basically, a reversal, like a reverse Uno card, right? Like, go back to, being more, masculine presenting, go back to your masculine side, like be one of us because you're part of the boys right now. Like, don't, even though you are a woman, don't express your womanhood. You need to abide by our rules, not be yourself. I like it. I like that they wrote it in a very like
Mhm.
subtle way, but it brings up all those other dynamics.
It's also so childish of the Witchers, and because they're the Witchers, that makes a lot of sense to me that it's like,
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
it's like boys growing up in elementary school and they hang out with the tomboy girl, and then all of a sudden she starts looking and acting more like a girl, and they're like,
Exactly.
ew, gross, girl, stop.
Right, right, exactly. That was totally my other take on it too. Is like, oh, she's coming of age, she's getting a little bit older, so she's gonna want to present herself in, uh, you know, probably a little bit more of a womanly way, and yeah, get that reaction from the boys. So
Yeah, yeah, and I'm curious how her relationship with Triss is going to develop, like as just a someone that she's got to look up to, kind of like the way
mhm,
Geralt phrased it was her new mouse sack was to her mother, and
yeah,
I hope they do lean into that because that's just an extra layer for both Triss,
yeah,
who not super important in the overall scheme of the show so far, and then
hmm,
Ciri, obviously it's her storyline in season one was a little convoluted, so it's nice to see more of a character development thing because obviously first season her whole story was within like 2-3 days, but
right.
here we really get to embrace her developing as a character for sure.
Yeah, I think it's important, the relationship between her and Triss, because Ciri never really experienced a true mother figure. You know, Calanthe was definitely seated herself very strongly in the grandmother role. Um, and again, what we just talked about, like Ciri, what other strong female, roles did she have in her life? But Triss, I think her character represents that, uh, the typical, because she's a sorceress who has the power over, like, the earth. So she's kind of like Mother Earth, Gaia, that kind of
Hmm.
mythological embodiment. That's kind of what Triss kind of embodies.
That's cool.
And yeah, like the fertility, the typical mother, like she's a natural, like caregiver type of person. Like she cares for animals, the plants. So that natural tenderness that she has, I think, is what makes Ciri gravitate towards her, because I think for Ciri it's just so unfamiliar. But I think it's a good thing overall, and I really like how Triss is with Ciri. It's something that Ciri needs right now in this
Yeah, I agree. Now, that just made you talking about that just made me think like like in the grand scheme of things, the opinion is that Yennefer is going to take on more of a mother role for Ciri. Now, do we think this whole thing with Triss is going to make that much more complicated and full of drama as the show develops? Because Ciri's kind of already got a little bit of a mother figure and
Right.
doesn't
I mean,
necessarily need Yennefer yet.
obviously, because Triss is just such a natural at it. Like she just has, the literally natural maternal, caregiving kind of traits. I think there may be a little bit of a conflict, maybe, but we'll have to see. I mean, Yennefer's always wanted to be a mom, and she's changed. I mean, that much is certain. Like she's changed because she's lost her ability to, control chaos. And
Mm,
uh, being a mom is something that she's always wanted to be. But taking a step into the real world here, back to our world, right? We know that becoming a parent is not just a choice. Well, maybe not for some people, but for a lot of people, it's a very poignant choice. But you also have to rise up to being a parent. You have to make decisions about who you want to be as a parent. And I think that same, it's the same thing for Yennefer, as it was for Geralt. I mean, he ignored Ciri for 12 years. That's not really a good parent, is it? Like, so I think Yennefer is going to get that chance to, basically be like, what type of person do I want to be in Ciri's life, and if it is being a mother role, what type of mom do I want to be? Because she's not Triss. She's gonna have to figure it out, like what she needs to be for herself, Yennefer, and what type of woman Ciri needs her to be. So I think she's gonna have to face that, probably in one of these episodes further on.
yeah, I was just gonna say, how many episodes is this season again? Is it 12?
8 episodes. I wish there
8,
was.
yeah.
Gosh,
No.
I wish there was 12.
I
I
know.
really
So
do.
sorry.
Just
So
give us
sorry to get your
10,
hopes up.
10,
So
10.
we're kind of butting up against it. Are we really gonna
Yeah.
get like they haven't even crossed paths yet, Yennefer, Geralt, and Ciri. So, I mean, I
Mhm.
don't. I believe you've watched a little bit further ahead than I have. So I don't necessarily know if the story's gonna get developed, and we're gonna keep it that way. Don't tell me a thing. I'm
My list is
sticking with the
sealed.
now.
Yes.
But we might as well take that as kind of just a fun little handoff. We got one more thing we can say about
Yeah.
Ciri's storyline, and that's the Elder Blood thing that Vesemir
Oh, yes, we
finds
definitely
out.
need to talk about that.
I was gonna hit at the end because
Yeah.
technically it's the end of the episode, but we might as well because we're already
Yeah.
talking Ciri. Let's talk about that right now, and then we'll get
Exciting.
into Yennefer's
Mhm.
adventure. So this elder blood thing, it grows flowers in the snow. I was very confused on what exactly was happening, but can you kind of do you know a whole lot about the elder blood scenario within this world here?
Um, Within the world, not particularly. Like the elves are still something that I really need to research on in the world of The Witcher, like understanding a bit more of why their blood is so potent and things like that. But yes, these beautiful purple flowers, the Fane word, I think. Um,
Yeah.
Yeah, so this confirms, I think, what we've all been kind of questioning since season one is like, who really is Siri? Like, what are some really strong indicators of who we can figure out who she is, right?
Right.
and the fact that when she bleeds, the Fane word grows, and they only grow where elder blood is spilt. Eastred said that in season 1, right? So it's a good tie-in to season 1, very clear. But yeah, it's very exciting to confirm that Ciri has elder blood. But then that opens up a whole other, line of questioning where it's like, oh my god, well then, Calanthe was over here killing elves, people of, full elder blood, lineage. Why was she doing that? Did she know that Ciri had elder blood in her? Did Calanthe herself have elder
I
blood?
was
Like,
just gonna say
all
maybe
these things.
Clancy is like has a I don't know a history of some sort and past romantic relationship. I don't know something like that. Now she
I
has this hate towards elves.
know.
I know it could be something
Exactly.
like that. You
Exactly.
never know.
Exactly.
So
Mhm.
yeah, that's going to be a very interesting storyline. I'm excited to see more of that. One thing that put me off a little bit by that though was like Vesemir immediately like, so that's how we make more Witchers. I'm like, do you mean like use your blood in a potion, or do you mean these Witchers have to hook up with this 15-year-old girl? Because that's gross.
Right. Right. He definitely did swarm a little bit too excitedly on that.
Mhm.
But then again, his it seems like
I mean,
that's
he's been wanting to bring the witch, like create more Witchers the whole time. I didn't
right.
necessarily see that part as creepy. I was trying to understand what the process would be to get these
Right.
more Witchers. Is it just like I said, something that they do in a lab? Is it going to have to be where when she's older? I don't really know what's going on here. Maybe you can kind of shed some light on that for me.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously she's too young
Hmm.
to have any sort of sexual relationships, but I don't think Vesemir would ever put her in that kind of situation.
Right.
But I mean, it does bring up that question where it's like, you know, again with the female trope being women are vessels, women are carriers, women are the birth givers of life, and this ties in with Ciri's ability to create witchers, which is going to be like through her blood,
Okay.
because uh, what I think it is, it's more like the alchemy, the potions, and things like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That was what was destroyed in Kaer and like that's what they were protecting at in Nightmare of the Wolf. Sorry, in the anime uh, movie that was shown that that's what they were protecting, was a bunch of different potions. So I think that what Vesemir is going to do is just try to see how he can work around or work with Ciri in
Okay.
being a vessel for new
Yes.
witchers, but not literally, like with her own
Okay,
physical
okay,
body. But
okay.
her physical
All right.
body, right?
Well,
Like,
I'm glad it was revealed
yeah,
to be that way because I didn't want to hate this show based on some weird teenage sexual thing. It was going to bother me if that was the case. So thank you for clearing that up. I'm much more excited for the rest of the show now. And that story, I think, kind of wraps there. Although, while you were talking about series history, I thought it was an interesting point that even though she's surrounded by, the other main characters are Yennefer and Geralt, who have been around for
mhm,
hundreds and sometimes thousands of years, but we're more curious about the 15 years that Ciri's been on the planet.
right,
It's so funny. But yeah, so I think that covers Ciri and Geralt's adventure in these
yeah.
couple episodes. Was there anything else you wanted to touch on with them or the Witchers or the monsters or anything like that?
No, I mean, I think that like obviously this is just like we're seeing like through episodes 1 through 4 that it just the pace and everything continues to ramp up. So I think that's going to carry all the way through to the end. We're just going to
Hmm.
continue to see like the pace pick up and drama build up and the intensity, because I think that we're going to hit 8 with a pretty big bang. So we'll see. We'll see
Well, that
everything.
sounds like
Every episode.
foreshadowing.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, that's awesome. I'm
That's my
excited to watch more
prediction.
of the show. I kind of like the way I'm taking this in. It gives me a little bit of anticipation in between adventures because that's the thing about Netflix is like everybody wants to watch the new show all the way through, and I can't blame anyone. But this is one of those ones where I'm like, okay, self control. Let's enjoy a couple episodes at a time and
Exactly.
see how it turns
Exactly.
out.
Yes.
But let's talk Yennefer. We get to
Mhm.
see our boy Yeskier come back. Yay!
Yes,
we'll get
yes.
to that, but essentially, she's on the run with Kahir, the Black
Mhm.
Knight, and they are, I don't know, where exactly are they trying to go at the beginning of this episode? Are they just running away from things?
So they're in the north part of the continent,
Right.
and um, I'm pretty sure that they're in Redania. So it's just another one of the northern kingdoms.
Yeah,
And
Redania Intelligence is the name of the episode. I forgot to mention
yes,
that, so that's cool.
yeah. So they're trying to get down to Sintra, basically, like the nearest place that Nilfgaard has, safe hold and outpost, which would be Sintra. So they're trying to figure out a way to get down there because obviously, Kair is a Nilfgaard general, and Yennefer is a mage who's wanted. So they're both, on the run, and it's difficult to try to find
And
safe.
part elf. I mean, that's
Oh
pretty
yeah, and then
important
and
too.
then also right, of course we have to add that on, like the elves are being persecuted, and everything's just it's a very hostile, volatile environment, so they're
Yeah.
having to just figure it out.
So they're on the run. They're where did those wanted posters come from? Did they just magically appear across the town? I didn't really understand
Yeah,
why.
like some birds flew
Some
in
birds.
and
Okay,
they were
birds.
actually
Got it.
just enchantments. Yeah. Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay, so we get a bunch of wanted posters with
Hmm.
Kahir and Yennefer on them. So they decide they have to go underground in a way. Now, who exactly do they? I mean, they go to the sewer. That's kind of what happens, and then they cross paths with the other
Hmm.
two elves. Correct. That's kind of how
Yes.
this whole adventure went down. So,
Yeah.
you all right with the logic behind that? I mean, kind of makes sense. You go under the ground to get away from
Yeah, I
everything.
mean, I always love that. I mean, I love that kind of storyline, which you have to go underground, you have to like survive, in the underworld kind of trope. I love that, but I do think it was very poignant to see the elves being in the sewer. Like it's not just underground; it's in a sewer. Like that's a nasty place, and I
It
think it
was
just
also
emphasizes.
wasn't it
Sorry, go ahead.
referenced that no, it wasn't it referenced that like their city was built on top of the ruins of the elf city. That was kind of the understanding there, and that's kind of how they knew how all this stuff worked. Was that
I think so, from what I'm remembering correctly. They made a like quick reference to that, I think. But yeah, like the elves end up saying, like they worked for the bank. They're like a respectable position, and now they're crawling through sewers. I think it was great that they used a sewer and not like some tunnel, right? But a sewer was very specific to adding on to the just deplorable conditions that the elves are having to face, and Kair and Jennifer are having to join with them. And I think it's really poignant for Jennifer to be experiencing this, because she's lived her life with having magic, and she started out obviously a girl on a farm being mistreated and not having a very good life, which that's traumatic in itself, but she left that very, very, very far behind, like probably just a very distant memory, and then having to go back to the sewers, be with other elves. I really wonder how this impacted her. Hopefully it'll take root pretty strongly for her. I really want to see her character
yeah?
change,
Let me,
in
let
a
me
more positive
stop
direction.
you just for a second. So I have my fan kicked on, and I'm sure you can hear that. So I'm gonna go turn that off real
Oh,
quick.
you could. Yeah, go ahead.
So sorry. I don't know if that's still
You're
on
good.
because it's not working very well, but I can do a noise cancellation thing later, so that's
Okay.
no biggie. All right. You just said all the stuff about Yennefer, and that was at 58:23. Oh, hey, there it is. Now it turned off. Good news. All right, I will respond to that. Yeah, that's actually a really good point. Yennefer kind of getting to embrace her elven side. That's something that I guess hasn't necessarily been explored throughout the series. It's been
Mhm.
acknowledged, no doubt, for her kind of interacting with other elves. And I mean, I'm curious if she's going to learn a little bit more about herself and her history just by being involved in this
Right.
elf adventure.
Right.
I guess we'll see how that goes. But this leads to
The sandpiper.
the elf, the what,
The sandpiper.
the sandpiper. Yes, I was going to say the deaf elf kind of decides that he's going to trust
Oh, okay.
Yennefer
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Cahir, and then they make their adventure, and then he gets taken by a monster. Oh no!
Quite unfortunate.
Yeah, bummer for that guy. So he's kind of shot up, but the other elf that was essentially translating for him gets to have his heroic moment later, although he's still
Yeah.
trash. So I don't like him.
Right. Right. Wait. Can I just wait about the sewers? I love that the little, like, not little. Why am I saying little? The monster in the sewers kind of was like the monster in the Star Wars sewers from the original.
Oh, I didn't even think about that.
I started geeking out. I just wanted to say that. Just, geek to geek. I just wanted to say that. Like I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Maybe that was like a little like Easter egg kind of put in there, like a little, tip of the hat kind of thing. But I don't know. I just thought that was really interesting that it
I
was like,
appreciate that. Sorry,
yeah.
I didn't close my door, and now my dog is bothering me. So give me a second.
You're good.
Serious, get out of here. Get, go get mama. Thanks, buddy. Man, glad I'm not trying to do this one live. Good lord. 103. All right. Yeah, I guess I know. I didn't even think about that monster being like the one from Star Wars, and that was, I mean, trash compactor is something to think about too. I don't know,
Yeah.
all the Star Wars stuff, and I
Yes.
don't think about Star Wars that often, so that's a fun little Easter egg. But we
Yeah.
find out from these elves that they're going to someone called the Sandpiper, who
Mhm.
performs every night at a bar. Now, at this point, did you know who they were going to reveal here? Were you under the impression, or were you just like, I have no idea?
I have no idea. The sandpiper sounded like this very legendary, mysterious, like very, intelligent, soldier type dude who like, he was like, you know, smuggler type person.
So you're expecting like a Han Solo, and you ended up with the
Yes.
Escar.
Yeah. Yes. It was great. It was great. It
Yeah,
was
it
a
was
really
wonderful. Yeah,
Mhm.
the reveal took me off guard too. I was a little surprised. I mean, they built
Yeah,
it up perfect. It was like, of course
we
they're gonna
did.
bring
Oh,
back
it was
Yesker
good.
at some point this season. You can't. He was a fan favorite with his Tasha coin to the Witcher, and we get another bop of his, so that's pretty
Yeah.
cool. Can't wait to get that soundtrack for the season on Spotify or something.
Yes.
Jam out to him singing some more. But his reveal, everyone,
Mhm.
the audience, myself included, super pumped. But how do you think he got involved in this whole underground elf? It's similar. I mean, I don't know if it's poignant or what. It's similar to like the Underground Railroad, where
That's what I
back
was
when
gonna
there were
say earlier,
slaves moving from the south to the north. That's
yeah. Mhm.
kind of seems like what they were going for here.
Yeah, I mean, just like the Underground Railroad, with our history here in the United States, and probably other situations where this occurred across the globe, but like people of intelligence, like education, helping to move people across borders and across treacherous places, mainly because uh, education systems. I think that's a network in itself. But about Yaskier specifically, from season one, he and Geralt had gotten captured um, when
Yeah, I remember.
Geralt was trying to kill the devil who's stealing the grain, and it ends up
Kind
being
of
the
it was a
fawn working
goat
with
looking thing.
Philivandrel. The fawn working with Philivandrel and a couple of the other elves that are just having to survive out in the mountains. And I think it was that interaction that was kind of like the trigger for Yaskir to start thinking about the elves in a different way. Because Philivandrel's choice of words, I don't know. It begs the question, like, how much interaction did Yaskir have with any elves prior? Maybe it was only hostile interactions, but we know that Yaskir hyperbolizes things. We know that he's, even though he does experience a lot of things in his life, he probably didn't experience that much in-person adventure until he met Geralt, which is why his relationship with Geralt is so poignant. Because Geralt introduced him to this whole wide world of actual, real adventure. Physical experiences, but Philivandrel, I think it was the one thing that stood out, like, what your babies or our babies are fertilizer for your grain. Like the fields that you sow are the ones that we died on. So, I think that the kind of illustrated mode of speaking that Philivandrel was using hit home for Yaskir, and I think maybe that kind of put him down a path to seeing the elves in a different light. And plus, he got Philivandrel's loot, so there's some
Yeah,
camaraderie there, like, art and prose. These are the things that Yaskir is all about. He's an educated man. He's a man of music and art, and so are the elves. The elves are well known in many different series and mythological stuff. Elves are known for art and music, right? So soft spot, I think, is there, and the camaraderie and that natural affinity and attunement is there for Yaskir with the elves. I think that that's probably the main draw.
Yeah, I mean that makes perfect sense to me. So I love that explanation. I give you an A plus on that. So good work. But what did we think of the Yennefer Yaskir interactions? Because it very much was like a love hate, but mostly hate thing, and I thoroughly enjoyed their conversations
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I mean, I loved it so much. Honestly, just going back to the intro, the reveal for Yaskir, being the Sandpiper and, reintroducing his character in season 2. I like, shouted with shock with his reveal. But honestly, I was like, I know I said this out loud too. I was like, this is where the writing has had a major turning point. It's like, it's going to go up from here. And definitely that conversation between Yaskir and Yennefer, I mean, this is why it's so glad. Like, I'm so glad to have Yaskir back, because it's that sarcastic wit and the dryness that I appreciate between them. But it's really poignant, too. Like they actually seem to be able to have a little bit more affinity in this conversation that they never had. They were always, at each other's, throats. But I think there was a sense of respect that they were able to bring together. They had both lost Geralt, and uh, I think in some way Yaskir's dryness and seeming disrespect is actually his way of showing Yennefer respect. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. He's such a fun character, and this whole interaction kind of super embraces. Sorry, I lost my point. Someone texted me.
Dara?
Huh?
Dara, the other elf?
Dara, no, I do want to talk about him, but no, the Yaskir Yennefer interactions are just they're super funny, because it felt like he was like a third wheel the whole time, but it shows that there's a history between the two that we didn't necessarily get to see on screen, which I appreciate for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think this is where the writing, I was like, oh, this is so good, because they really do write it in a way, like you said it perfectly, like where it emphasizes that there is a long-standing back history that maybe the audience hasn't been privy to, but that they definitely display in their manner of speaking towards each other. So it's pretty cool. It was good.
Yep. Beautifully done. I appreciated it. So we get the elves, and they go through their process that they normally go through, and Yaskir tells them they definitely need a bath. also funny because they were in the sewers. Great stuff. But we eventually we get to the shipyard, right?
Mhm.
And the shipyard scene is interesting, right? It's pretty funny, and it kind of turns into a big ordeal, really showing the type of person Yaskier is. So that was
Yes.
pretty funny. How did you enjoy that scene?
I liked it. I think it showed um it it showed the difference because I think when we left season 1 off, we weren't really sure. Well, obviously we didn't know what had happened to Yaskier.
Mm-hmm.
We know that Yaskier was, the budding artist. He was making his name known throughout the continent with his songs of, the White Wolf and the White Haired Witcher and all that. So I think that his conversation with the dockhand, or whatever the man was on the in the shipyard, uh, shows his renown that he's gained, like truly,
Mm-hmm.
not just like being like a court singer, but as like an actual, the continent
Like
pop
something
star.
of legends. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think that kind of helps tie in to maybe his change of tune. Like his, Burn Witcher Burn is like that's dark.
Yeah, no
Um,
doubt.
and yeah, it shows uh just Yasker being in a different place, obviously, because then he switches on the dockhand, and starts, cussing him out
It's
basically.
so mad. Yeah, that was hilarious, and that's exactly how creators feel when people start criticizing their product. They're just like, okay, so you do it
Yeah,
then, you
I
jerk.
know. I do not blame him at all whatsoever. He was being spicy at the wrong time, but I get it. Like,
Yeah, there was enough people depending on you that you might have tried to hold your tongue a bit more, but whatever. It
yeah,
was
he's
it
trying
was
to
a fun scene, and then that jerk face elf gets to have some sort of redemption just to die, which I'm glad that he died because
yeah, I don't feel bad about it,
no, that guy sucks. But hey, thanks, bud, for saving us this little adventure here. So all of the elves load into the bottom of the ship, and this is
Mhm.
the reveal of Dara. I mean, Dara was shown in a prison for some king that I barely know. I put his name down somewhere on here. He seems so like not important, but he is King Vesemir,
Yep, yep.
and some guy named
Dijkstra.
Dijkstra. Thank
His
you.
his
It
mate.
has a J in there. Why does it have a J in there?
Polish.
Whatever.
It's Eastern European. I'm not sure if it's Polish, but it's Eastern European. Yeah.
Yeah, so we find out that they have possession of Dara, which Dara is known for being the friend of Ciri in season 1,
Mhm.
and he's sent in as like a spy. And I'm curious where his loyalties are going to lie for that whole thing. But
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm glad his character gets to get developed more because he was one of those characters that it wasn't a throwaway, but it was like, why are you here? Or why did you leave? I don't really understand what's going on with him. So maybe
Right.
we'll get some further explanation on that.
Yeah.
But then, of course, that's pretty much the end of the episode. I mean, Yaskier says thank you. Good, what does he say?
Oh, I know
Goodbye,
that.
good luck, and good riddance.
Yes. Yep.
Yes,
Quote worthy.
beautifully put, Yaskier, like
Mhm.
a true artist. And he exits the ship, and we hear him get hit with, I think, his guitar or ukulele, whatever that thing is called,
Yeah. Yeah. His loot.
and
Mhm.
his loot. Yep, that's it. And that's the end of their story. I know you know more, but I
I
don't know any
do.
more beyond
It's
that.
still shocking all the same. Like how episode 4 closes out is still shocking all the same. It's a great way to close it out. But yeah, that end interaction.
Yep, that, and then they did the Elder Blood reveal, which we already talked about. So that wraps
Mhm.
it up on these 2 episodes. Did you have any further points there, Rachel?
Um, can we gossip for just 1 second about
Of
something? It's
course.
actually Yaskir's song. Um, I know that part of like the sub conversation or side conversation about Yaskir was, in the games he's referred to as Dandelion, and he kind of prounces around. He's a flowery type of guy, but
Hmm.
in season 1 they only ever emphasize how many women he's ever slept with, and
I was
how he
gonna
really
say
helped
he
them.
they had him lean more gay for sure in these couple episodes,
Yeah,
but
and then yeah, in season 1 there was the bath scene after Geralt slays the Kraken, or the Selkie monster, and I think a lot of people from the LGBT community, like that's what I heard that they talked about a lot. They were like, "Oh, Yasker's a good bisexual male character. Like this is, hinting at it." I think that Burn Witcher Burn, and then his interaction with Yennefer, they were like,
Mhm.
we're both broken over the same man, and I'm like, well, I think that all just about confirms it.
Yeah, I mean, he's just,
You know.
middle-aged Taylor Swift is essentially what he is here.
Right. So I'm like, maybe they won't, say it officially just yet, but it would be, I think, nice to just give Yaskier uh, some validation in that area
Yeah,
that if he is a bisexual man, then that's great for screen
yeah,
because I
for
think we
sure.
don't see enough of that, particularly
Yeah.
for men.
I appreciate how it's been going so far, and I really hope they don't just crap the bed on it and then just like, oh yeah, by the way, also like, dude, just in an offhanded line because that just it feels like it just feels worthless at that point. I love how they're
Hmm.
building it up where as a viewer you should be able to see that, and the
Yeah.
fact that it's just gonna further get developed, and then maybe he will get a legendary scene with another man or Geralt even himself. I don't know where the show is going.
We'll see. Maybe it'll be like Game of Thrones in the end. We don't know. We don't know.
He's gonna go back to his sister. That's what's gonna happen now. Yeah, I thought the same thing throughout this whole episode. I was like, man, it kind of really seems like he just was in love with Geralt, and now he's heartbroken that he's gone. And
Yeah.
awesome representation, always a plus.
Yeah. And
One of
if
my
they
favorite
explore
things.
that, that's cool. But I just thought that that was something that was, notable out of this episode. So,
Yeah, I'm glad we could take some tea on that. That was
yeah.
fun. Fantastic. That's I think that's all I gotta say. And thank you again, once again, for joining me, Rachel. Always a fun time. I know you're gonna be on the next couple episodes. We're gonna talk to Witcher, the rest of
Mhm.
Witcher. And thank you to the audience for listening in. We appreciate you tuning in all the time. And you guys have a good one.